Black rain is falling on Tehran. Not a metaphor. Actual black rain. Oil-soaked clouds are descending over a city of nearly 9 million people after wave of American and Israeli strikes turned Iran's oil depots into massive infernos that have darkened the sky. Sewage lines are burning. Fire is moving through the streets like rivers. And in Washington, the man who ordered all of this picks up the phone, calls ABC News, and calmly says, "I am not worried about anything at all." That is the moment we are living in right now. The President of the United States launched a war that has shut down the Strait of Hormuz for the first time in 8 decades, pushed global energy markets into chaos, killed American soldiers whose names were read on national television this weekend, and triggered retaliatory strikes stretching from Tehran to Tel Aviv to Bahrain to Kuwait. And his response? It is a little glitch. We had to take this detour. A detour. That is the phrase the Commander-in-Chief is using for a conflict that has engulfed the Middle East, produced scenes that resemble something out of the Book of Revelation, and left Iran's foreign minister on American television this morning saying, "No, we are not interested in your ceasefire. Not this time." Over the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly how this situation spiraled out of control. 3 moments from this past weekend reveal everything about where this conflict may be headed and why the world you woke up in today is fundamentally more dangerous than the one you went to sleep in just a week ago. Think about it like this. If someone picked a fight with you, knocked you down, then offered you a handshake, only to hit you again the moment you accepted, how many times would you take that handshake before you stopped reaching out your hand? Drop your answer in the comments because that is essentially the calculation Iran just made on live American television, and it changes everything. Let's rewind the timeline because the speed of this conflict has buried the sequence of events that truly matters. The United States and Israel began striking Iran, initially targeting military sites. Then the strikes expanded to oil infrastructure. And according to multiple investigations from Reuters, CNN, and the New York Times, an elementary school in southern Iran was hit, killing more than 170 people, including dozens of children. Iran accepted a ceasefire the first time. They showed restraint and framed their response as self-defense. When the aggression paused, they paused too. But then the attacks began again. More strikes, hospitals, refineries, freshwater desalination plants, the infrastructure that literally keeps people alive in a region where clean water can be more strategically critical than oil. This time, Tehran looked at the pattern, looked at the ceasefire it had accepted before, and looked at what happened afterward. And this time, Iran made a different decision. This time, the answer was no. That single word is now reshaping the entire conflict. Washington's strategy appeared to rely on the assumption that Iran would eventually fold, that the pressure would become unbearable, that the government would crack. Instead, Iran is striking back. Ballistic missiles, Shahed drones, and cluster munitions have landed in Tel Aviv and surrounding areas. Retaliatory strikes have targeted desalination plants in Bahrain, mirroring the same infrastructure attacks that were carried out against Iran. And the United States currently has no clear exit strategy. So, let me walk you through 3 receipts from this weekend that show just how unstable this situation has become. 3 moments that provide a window into a machine running without brakes. Receipt number 1. The ABC interview. Donald Trump calls Mary Bruce at ABC News. She asks the most basic questions any wartime president should be ready to answer. Are you worried about Americans at home? Are you concerned about terrorist retaliation from Iran? What about economic fallout, rising gas prices, the impact on ordinary families? His answer, quoted directly, "I am not worried about anything at all. I think it is fine. It is a little glitch. We had to take this detour. I knew exactly what would happen with the detour." A detour. An unlawful war where American soldiers have already returned home in flag-draped coffins, where the Middle East is burning from end to end, where the Strait of Hormuz has effectively gone dark, and the president calls it a detour. In that same call, he says everything remains on the table, including ground forces and reports of special operations teams entering Iran to capture enriched uranium. Then comes perhaps the most revealing statement. Trump says if Iran chooses its next Ayatollah without consulting him personally, the new one will not last long. He wants to handpick the supreme leader of a sovereign nation of 90 million people. That is not strategy. That is delusion presented as strength. Receipt number 2. What some are calling the Lindsey Graham doctrine. Trump sends Senator Lindsey Graham onto the morning shows, and what follows becomes one of the most unsettling television appearances of the entire conflict. Graham appears wearing hats reading "Free Cuba" and "Make Iran Great." Then he delivers what sounds like a wartime infomercial. "We are marching through the world," he says. "We are cleaning out the bad guys. Iran is going down and Cuba is next." Let that sink in. A sitting United States Senator, during an active war that has already taken American lives, is talking about the next war before this one has even begun to end. He calls Trump the greatest commander-in-chief of all time and says, "Just wait to see what happens in the next 2 weeks. We are going to blow the hell out of these people." Then he turns to America's Arab allies, countries whose infrastructure is being damaged in the crossfire, and tells them, if you want a treaty with the United States, you need to get into this fight. That is not diplomacy. That sounds more like extortion with a merchandise table. Receipt number 3 involves Fox News, and while quieter, it might be the most revealing moment of all. During the dignified transfer at Dover this weekend, where the remains of 6 American service members returned home, Donald Trump attended wearing a $55 campaign hat that is currently being sold on his website. Fox News aired the ceremony, except they did not air the actual ceremony. Instead, they ran footage from a previous dignified transfer from Trump's first term, one where he was not wearing the campaign hat. Eventually, they issued an on-air correction, calling it an inadvertent error. But it raised an obvious question. When has Fox News ever accidentally made the president look more dignified? The names of those 6 Americans deserve to be spoken without politics attached. Captain Cody Cork, Sergeant First Class Nicole Moore, Sergeant First Class Noah Tenz, Sergeant Declan Cody, Major Jeffrey O'Brien, and Chief Warrant Officer Robert Marzieson. Every single one of them a hero. Not one of them a prop. If this reporting is connecting dots you have not seen assembled elsewhere, you are already ahead of much of the conversation. Stay tuned, because this conflict is accelerating faster than any single outlet can track. Now, here is the part many people are missing. While Trump and Graham appear on American television projecting total confidence, Iran's foreign minister went on Meet the Press this morning and delivered something the White House clearly did not expect: calm, calculated defiance. Most countries facing the full weight of American military power rushed to negotiate. Iran did the opposite. The foreign minister explained their reasoning with remarkable precision. "Last time you attacked us, we accepted a ceasefire in good faith. You used that pause to rearm and strike us again. You bombed our schools, our hospitals, and our water supply. So no, we are not accepting another ceasefire. There must be a permanent end to the war, and until that happens we will keep fighting for our people and our security. That is not bluster. That is a negotiating position built on pattern recognition. While Trump tells Americans he is not worried about anything, Iran is signaling to the world that it has made a strategic decision: drag this conflict out, absorb the punishment, and keep firing until the war becomes so costly and prolonged that the pressure shifts back onto Washington. Evidence suggests that process may already be underway. The Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply travels, has effectively shut down. Kuwait's petroleum chief says tanker traffic has dropped to almost zero for the first time in 80 years. Iraqi oil production has fallen by 60%. Qatar has halted liquefied natural gas output. Iran struck Kuwait's Social Security building and targeted Bahrain's desalination plants after similar infrastructure in Iran was destroyed. Even the United Arab Emirates, after Israeli officials suggested Abu Dhabi was helping with strikes on Iran, issued an angry denial, insisting the Emiratis are operating strictly in a defensive posture. You do not fight a superpower by matching its firepower. You fight by making the war expensive enough that the superpower's own citizens begin asking why. So what does all of this mean for you? If you fill your car with gas, you are going to feel this. If you buy groceries, you will feel it there too. If you have a retirement account invested in markets tied to energy and transport, you may feel it there as well. Analysts are already warning that food, energy, airline, transportation, and insurance costs could surge, pushing consumer price inflation above 4% by April or May. The shutdown of Hormuz alone could throw energy markets into prolonged instability. Once supply chains reroute and companies restructure shipping routes and energy sourcing, those changes rarely reverse overnight, even if a ceasefire is eventually signed. So, where does this go from here? There are three realistic paths forward, and none of them are simple. The first is a managed off-ramp. Quiet pressure from Gulf states, European allies, and American business interests forces a real ceasefire, not just a pause. Both sides claim victory. Trump calls it the greatest deal ever made. Iran tells its citizens they stood firm. Hormuz reopens and markets stabilize. But the structural damage remains. The Gulf, states that watched their water plants and oil infrastructure burn, will never trust the old security system the same way again. The second possibility is regional realignment. Middle Eastern powers watching the UAE deny involvement, watching Kuwait struggle economically, watching Bahrain's water supply targeted, begin recalculating their alliances. They quietly deepen ties with China, India, and other powers not currently bombing their neighbors. A new network forms, not exactly anti-American, but no longer automatically aligned with Washington. The third path is full escalation. This is the scenario nobody wants to say out loud, but Senator Graham already hinted at it. Ground forces inside Iran, special operations missions targeting nuclear sites, attempts at regime change in a country of 90 million people with hardened military infrastructure. Allies would be forced to pick sides. The global economy could fragment, and the conflict that started as a little glitch could become the defining catastrophe of a generation. Here's one thing that seems certain. Whatever happens next, the system that held the Middle East together for decades is not returning to its previous form. Even if policy changes tomorrow, the lesson has already been learned by Iran, the Gulf states, and every mid-sized power watching this unfold. The lesson is simple and brutal. Never put all your strategic eggs in one basket, because that basket might eventually be handed to someone who calls a regional war a detour and wears a campaign hat to a funeral. Iran did not start this fight, but its foreign minister just told the world that Tehran has no intention of ending it on Washington's terms. Trump did not build an exit strategy, he built a merchandise line. And Lindsey Graham did not present a military doctrine, he presented something closer to a world tour of destruction with a gift shop at the end. So I will leave you with this question. Did Trump break the Middle East, or did the Middle East simply stop pretending the old arrangement still worked? Is Iran's refusal to accept another ceasefire strategic patience, or a dangerous gamble that could consume the entire region? And when a United States senator says, "We are marching through the world," does anyone in Washington truly know where that march ends? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The next chapter, whether it is the Hormuz standoff, a ground forces decision, a Gulf realignment, or an inflation shock hitting everyday consumers, is approaching quickly. This story is moving fast, and it is far from over. This content is commentary and analysis for informational purposes only, and does not constitute financial, legal, or geopolitical advice. Always consult qualified experts before making decisions based on events discussed here.